Before the sea roared and the sky cracked open, there was a quiet morning. Samara was a grand and wealthy city. People took pride in its marble structures, golden statues, and towering temples. They lived in comforts never seen before, eating well, singing late into the night, and calling it paradise. But in that paradise, no one searched for the truth anymore. No one cared what was right or wrong. The priests preached by day, feasted by night, and made political deals behind closed doors. People were drawn to strange gods, gods of gold, pleasure, and control. The old grew indifferent, the young mocked everything sacred. Those in power lived for themselves. Only a few still remembered the God of heaven. One of them was Noah, a quiet farmer living outside the city. Every day, he worked in the fields. Every night, he knelt in prayer beneath the olive tree. While others built towers, Noah built an altar.
Is that Noah again? Still praying to the invisible God?
Maybe he's waiting for the sky to fall.
It's not that God has forgotten Samara. It's that Samara has forgotten God.
Life is short. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Every morning, as Samara woke to music and the smell of roasting meat, Noah walked quietly to his field. His hands held a plow, but his eyes searched the sky. He felt something stirring in the wind, a weight in the air, like a shadow coming from far away. He didn't know the time, the shape, but he knew this something was coming. One evening, as Noah knelt beneath the olive trees, a stillness fell upon the earth. No birds sang, no breeze moved, and then he heard the voice, deep, thunderous, and full of sorrow. My spirit shall not remain with mankind forever. If humanity will not turn from its wickedness, their years shall be numbered, no more than 120. And then came the words that shook the soul. I will wipe mankind from the face of the earth. Not only men, but animals, birds, and every living thing. For I regret that I created them. But you, Noah, have found favor in my eyes. Noah fell to the ground, trembling. He had heard of judgment before, but now it was real. And the Lord continued, build yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in it, and cover it with pitch inside and out. It shall be 3 stories tall, 14 cubits high, 130, 7 cubits long, and 23 cubits wide. Then God paused and added, I give mankind 50 years. That is the time they have to turn back. And it is the time you have to build.
50 years to build a ship in a land with no sea.
There will be a flood across the whole earth. But I make a covenant with you, Noah. You, your wife, your sons, and their wives will enter the ark. And of every living creature, take 2, male and female, that they may live. Gather food, prepare well, and warn them all. The wind returned. The stars above shimmered. Noah sat alone in the dark, the weight of the world now on his shoulders. He looked at his calloused hands, hands that had only held tools for farming, and now they would build a vessel to carry the future of life itself. At that moment, Noah did not understand everything, but he knew this God had spoken. And when God speaks, a man listens. The very next morning, Noah gathered his family and told them everything. His wife covered her mouth in fear. They saw the change in his eyes. Something weighty, something eternal.
But Father, we live so far from the sea. How could we ever build something like that?
Noah had no answers, only faith. And so, his sons looked at him in silence and they began. While his sons prepared tools, Noah walked into the city. He went to the markets, the temples, the city gates. He warned them,
Turn back, you have 50 years. Change your ways. God has seen your hearts.
At first, people were confused. Then they laughed.
Rain, we haven't had a flood in decades.
Some shook their heads politely. Others threw fruit and broken pottery. Children chased him through the streets shouting,
Where's your boat, old man?
Each day, the mockery grew louder.
A boat in the desert. Has the sun melted your brain?
Even if no one believes, I must still speak, because God still waits.
Noah stood in the square while the crowds jeered. But he didn't fight back. He simply stood still like a tree in the wind. For if even one person heard and turned back, it would be worth it. In the evenings, he walked home with dust on his cloak and bruises on his arms, but peace in his heart. And as he walked beneath the stars, he whispered a prayer, not for himself, but for them. 1 year has passed. The ark has not yet formed. With no blueprint, no shipyard, the wood was heavy, the sun harsh. Each beam had to be cut by hand, carried for miles, shaped with sweat and bruises. Noah's sons worked until their backs etched. His wife prepared food. They raised animals, tended crops, and still, every day, he preached. But no one listened. And though Noah never doubted God, he began to doubt himself. That night, he returned to the olive garden where it all began. The trees swayed gently in the evening wind. He knelt once more, older now, worn thin.
Lord Almighty, we are only men. You ask for something we cannot do. Why not do it yourself? Why choose hands like ours?
I could build the ark. I could lift the beams. I could even remake the world without you. But then it would no longer be you. You were made to tend this world, just as Adam once did. If I did everything for you, how would you grow? It is through burden that strength is born. As long as your heart remains open, my miracles can flow. The wind stilled. Noah opened his eyes, and for a moment, the garden glowed, not with sunlight, but with something deeper. He felt peace rush over him like water. His weariness melted into resolve. He stood, looked at his hands again, calloused, rough and now ready. The next morning, his sons saw something new in their father's face, and without words, they picked up their tools, because faith had returned. After decades of labor, the ark had begun to rise, slowly but surely. Its frame stood tall against the horizon like a giant shadow. Birds gathered on the beams. Animals wandered near. It was a sight both strange and holy. But in 50 years, not one heart had changed. The people had only grown greedier and more violent. That night, as Noah and his family rested, flames erupted. Flames swallowed the scaffolding. The fire danced like demons around the hull. Noah woke to screaming. He and his sons rushed out, trying to fight the fire, with buckets, bare hands and tears. But the blaze climbed higher.
Lord, we tried.
And then, from the heavens, a thunderclap, a flash of light. The sky split open, rain fell in sheets. A downpour so heavy it choked the fire in seconds. The arsonists froze, stared at the sky, their torches extinguished it, then fled in terror. The family gathers, soaking wet, eyes wide.
You see us, Lord. Even in the dark you see.
The rain it begins.
The next morning, the sky did not clear, the rain didn't stop. The animals began to arrive, from hills, forests, and valleys. Lions, deer, elephants, birds of every kind. Not driven by fear, but by something older, something sacred. Noah looked at the hill, now crowded with life, his breath caught in his chest. For years, the people of Samara had ignored Noah. Now, as rain poured without end, they rejoiced at first.
Finally, the drought is over.
But by the third day, rivers flooded. Streets turned to streams, temples filled with water, and still it rained. Noah knew the time had come. He and his family loaded the animals, every pair, every type. Soon, the ark was filled. In the hills, Noah and his family gathered the last animals. Birds perched on beams, the elephants, now companions, stood near the ramp. A strange quiet filled the air. One last time, Noah looked out across the valley. His heart ached. No one had listened. Then, with trembling hands, he reached for the massive wooden door. Giant wooden door creaks and slams shut. I will close the door. And the rain began to roar.
50 years, and not one turned back.
They'll come now, won't they? They'll see.
It's no longer time to see. It's time to survive.
In the valley below, chaos. People fled their homes. They grabbed children, climbed onto rooftops, and cried out to their gods. But the rain didn't stop. They remembered the ark. Crowds surged toward the mountain. Hundreds, then thousands. But the land split. Waters surged from underground. The roads vanished. Those who reached the base of the ark pounded on its hull. Some wept, some cursed, but the ark did not open. It was not built to steer, only to float. Inside, Noah knelt and prayed, his face pressed to the wood, tears falling for those outside.
Lord, I did all I could. I tried.
Days passed. The rain stopped. The sky was gray. Silence, the kind of silence only known after great weeping. Noah opened the window. Clouds still blanketed the sky. No people, no life, no sound. Just water with one wooden ark drifting, alone. The world was gone. The city, the voices, the laughter, the cruelty, all swept away. Weeks passed, gentle creaks of the ark, low breath of wind, food was shared, water rationed. There was no sunlight, only gray upon gray. The occasional snore of animals or murmur of family voices praying. Then, on the 115th day, Noah opened the hatch. He released a raven. It flew and never returned. He waited 7 more days. Noah sent a dove. It returned with nothing. 7 more days later, he sent it again. It came back with an olive leaf in its beak. On the first day of Noah's 601st year, the ark came to rest upon the mountains of Ararat. The waters had receded, the earth was new, dry. The door opened, and for the first time in months, fresh air filled their lungs. Lions and lambs walked together. Eagles soared above. Deer danced through the grass. Life had returned, but everything was new. Noah steps onto solid ground. His knees touch the soil. He kisses it and builds a small stone altar and lights a fire.
You were just in all your ways, and still you spared us.
What happens now, Father?
Now we begin again.
Never again will I destroy the earth by flood, as a sign of my covenant with you. and all living things I set my bow in the clouds. And so began the second chapter of humanity. There would be no more great floods, but the flood had left a deeper mark, one that could not be seen on land, but only in the soul. Noah knew this: the strength of a civilization is not in its walls, nor in its towers, nor its wealth, it is in the heart. This is the story of Noah, a man who obeyed when no one else would, a man who built with faith, not proof, a man who walked with God, so that the world could begin again.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of faith. If you believe these Bible stories can touch hearts, please leave a kind comment, and share this video with your loved ones. Don't forget to subscribe to Bible Adventures, where we bring God's Word to life through epic, heartfelt animations for kids and families alike. May you and your family always walk in God's blessings and peace.